Okay, today let's address a common question, and that is how to change your posture. Before we talk about posture, we're going to talk about three main concepts that you have to know when it comes to muscles. The first is about muscle tone. Now, tone is the amount of tension in a muscle, so you can think of that as the amount of neurological signal to any individual muscle about how much tension, how tight it needs to be at any given moment. And this can come from a lot of different places. A lot of times when you've just worked out, tone will have increased because you worked out a certain muscle, and that tone will take a little while to dissipate. Tone can also be protective. So if you stand in a very extended posture, your lower back is pretty arched, a lot of times where you'll feel tone is in your hamstrings. You'll feel tightness in your hamstrings, and the reason why they do that is because they're trying to protect you from slipping into more extension where you could actually do damage to your vertebrae or your discs. The second concept is muscle creep. This is what happens when we're in a position for a little while and the muscle starts to actually physically deform. It's not changing, but it is physically deforming. And this is one of the reasons why movement in a warm-up, foam rolling, stretching, dynamic movement, this is one of the reasons why exercise in general is so good for us, and changing posture is so good for us over the day, because when you stand or sit in the same posture for a long time, that creep happens more and more and more. When we move, we change positions, we prevent that creep from happening so dramatically. And again, when we come into the gym, we, foam roll, stretch, dynamic movement, we start to move around and we start to bring our muscles to a more neutral, we start to relax some of that deformation and we start to bring our muscles back to a more neutral position. The third concept is about long-term postural adaptations. When we are in the same position a lot, and that can be through a lot of muscle regions and a lot of joints in our body. When we're in the same position a lot, what will happen is your body will start to lay down connective tissue and it will start to adapt the muscle to that length. So, for instance, if you stand for work all day long and you stand with a really extended posture, you're really leaned back, what some people will find is the tissue in their lower back will start to actually shorten. As your body adapts to that position, it will adapt to the length that it needs to be. And what this means is that getting out of this position becomes progressively harder and harder, and doing really dramatic movement out of that position leaves you more susceptible to things like muscle strain because you actually reach end range of motion faster. So, how do we change posture? Well, we can be aware of all three of these sort of patterns, all three of these concepts when we're trying to change posture. The first thing is that getting stronger helps because getting stronger increases the resting tone on a muscle. It increases the strength and the tension on the actual muscle. And what that means is it encourages us to be in certain positions. So if we have an issue with, let's say, I'll use lower back as an example. If you have an issue with your lower back and we build stronger abdominals, we create more tone in that muscle by creating more strength, and that encourages us to be in a little more of a neutral position. It's not the entire solution, but it helps. So getting stronger in a nice balanced way helps a lot. Understanding a muscle creep, that's not so much important for long term, but it is nice to know that your muscles will start to deform into various positions, and you'll just feel better if you change your posture a little more often during the day. You'll avoid that deformation in the tissue, and you'll just feel better. You won't feel sort of this stiffness in certain places when you stand up from, sitting for a long time or vice versa. The most important thing, though, when it comes to changing posture is having large-scale awareness of what our posture is and how we want to change it. Now, the first two things, getting stronger, being aware of changing our posture frequently, that helps a lot. But knowing where our posture is and understanding where neutral needs to be can be just a very simple trick to help us change posture long term. So if you know that you're sitting a lot and you're, let's say, hunched over when you're sitting at your desk, understanding how to put yourself in just a little more of a neutral position, not in anything extreme, but just understanding how to put yourself in a more neutral position can be very helpful. And then when you combine that with the idea of changing your posture more frequently, that will help prevent your tissues from making those really long-term adaptations. We're not just concerned with strength or muscle tone, we're concerned with the actual tissue adaptation. When we change our posture a lot, we're moving a lot throughout the day, it prevents our body from making those long-term adaptations. It makes it much easier for us to move when we're in the gym, and it ensures us that we will pretty much feel better, almost guaranteed. So move a lot, strength train, and just be aware of your posture throughout the day. Those will be the biggest keys to changing posture long-term.